Joanna, it's such a pleasure to have you on the Success with Soul podcast. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Just off camera, I was telling you that I wanted to really talk about this archetypes. It's something that this is the first time I actually hear about it. So before we jump into that, let our audience know a little bit about you and your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been coaching and training coaches and therapists and healers for about 20 years now. And I started, which seems like so long at this point. I started off as a business coach, and I was supporting clients to help them build their businesses and their practices. And what I noticed along the way, a couple of years in, is that the reason why my clients were having so much success was, yes, it was because of the marketing strategies I was teaching them for sure. But what I saw was kind of even more of a factor is that they were taking my modeling on how to co-create transformation with their clients. And their clients were so excited about the results that were being created. They were re-signing with them and referring out, and that my clients' businesses had really become these beautiful re-sign and referral machines. So at that point, what I realized was, oh, that's really what I'm doing here. And I kind of shifted more formally into training practitioners how to go deeper with clients, how to co-create more transformation, and how to do it all in an ethical and trauma-informed way.
I love that. I love that. Can you tell me a little bit more about what does that mean? What does going all in with client transformation mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the coaching industry. And that being said, and I believe in it so deeply. And that being said, a lot of what has happened in the last, let's say 5, 10 years is that there are a lot of marketing promises that are being made, but not necessarily fulfilled. There's a lot of incredible expertise out there that coaches and practitioners have, a lot of great how-to information, how to grow your business, how to have a fulfilling relationship, how to be healthy. But a lot of times that's not being paired with what I would call transformational skills, with the kinds of skills that support clients to be able to use that incredible information, because human beings are messy. We can't just take like the 5 steps to something always and execute it. We have fears that come up. We have limiting beliefs that come up. We have obstacles that come up, resistances, shadows. And what I have really seen across the board is, in order to co-create results with clients, we want to combine that incredible expertise we have with the ability to support our clients to move beyond those fears and those habits so that they can execute.
And what have you found working with your clients, guiding them as they're guiding their own clients through transformation? What have you found to be, I'm not going to say the most important, but what has been key in every single one of these stories?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I love it. It's a hard question too, because I want to answer 10 different things. There are so many key things, but if I had to pick one, and this is where I always start with all of my trainings, and then we weave this throughout, it's what I would call practitioner energetics. So what that means is, no matter what technique you're using, no matter what modality, how great you ask questions, all of that, where all of it starts is the practitioner, who the practitioner is, what the practitioner feels and believes, how the practitioner is showing up. So what I always like to tell practitioners is that energy follows energy. So if you're showing up with an energy of not feeling confident in yourself and your ability as a practitioner, the client in one way or another is going to feel that and not have as much confidence in you. If you as a practitioner are showing up with not without having confidence in your client, like, oh, I don't think she's going to do the homework, or she's not really going to get this, or she's not going to follow through, it doesn't matter what you say, in one way or another, the client is going to feel that energy follows energy. If you show up as the practitioner being scared of your client, oh, if I reflect that truth, my client is going to get angry or get upset, so I'm going to hold back. That energy permeates the container. And so where everything starts is from the practitioner being in aligned energetics, believing I am whole and complete as a practitioner, and you, client, are whole and complete. I am not here to fix anything. I am not here to save you. We are here to come together to hold space for results and transformation to happen. When you start with that, then you find the right words for the breakthrough questions. It's easier to navigate through fear, all of the things.
Yeah, I love that you said, we're not here to fix you, because I think that's so important for both the practitioner and the client to go from that space, right? We're here to transform, but there's nothing to be fixed. I think a lot of the times there's that misconception of fixing, needing
Yes.
to be fixed.
Yeah. And when there's that misconception, first of all, it's a ton of pressure on the practitioner because we can't do that. That's us taking over responsibility. And then that attitude is taking away from a client's empowerment as well.
Absolutely. I'm also a certified coach, and I'm a law of attraction coach. And one of the things that is inherent in our teaching is that you have all the answers within.
Yes.
It's my job to just ask the questions that are gonna prompt you, because you have all the answers. We don't have the answers, you do. So I love that you bring that up. So tell me a little bit about how to grow a business without like the marketing hype, and instead really delivering world-class transformation. What does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, marketing is always important. I don't
Right.
pretend like it's not. But what I have really seen for myself and for so many of my students and clients is that it takes so much more time, effort, energy, and money to constantly be looking for new clients, for new streams of leads, that like all the effort that it takes to put into ads and funnels. And not that I don't do those, I definitely do some of that. Um, and the strategy that takes less time and effort and money is doing the really quality work with clients. When you are able to really co-create that transformation, a client is more willing, or not even willing, but excited to, first of all, to re-sign with you. So I have clients, my students have clients that we retain for years and years and years, and not because the client feels they need us. It's not a crutch. It's because the transformation is so palpable, and then they're ready for the next level and the next level. So a re-sign doesn't cost any marketing money. You don't have to, create a lot of copy and fancy email funnels for it. You need to have good re-sign skills. You need to know how to support a client that is finishing up with a cycle to see, okay, what is it that I want next? How do I want that? So re-signs can just increase any business.
Yes.
So many businesses are losing money because they're not retaining clients. And then The other thing is referrals. So when you are co-creating transformation with clients and they are so thrilled about the work that you're doing together, they're much more likely to share about you on social media, to share with with their friends about you, all of that. And so again, a much cheaper way of bringing new clients in. Um, and then the third, I always say it's the 3 R's when you're creating transformation. So resigns, referrals, and reputation. Your reputation precedes you when you're co-creating transformation. But more than that, um, when you know that you're following through on your marketing promises, all of your marketing becomes that much stronger because you can stand in it in integrity, knowing that what you're letting prospects know is what you're going to deliver on.
Sorry, I had to mute myself because I was having a coughing attack.
I was going
Um,
to say if you're okay.
yes, thank you. I love the tapping into the 3 R's. And I wanted to kind of pedal back a little bit on re-signs. And you said something, you said the cycle. And you said you've had some clients you've been with for years. So tell me, what does that look like? So you start, like, for example, a cohort, and now that's done. And now you're organically just moving through different things.
Great question. So we can kind of look at it a little bit differently between one-on-one clients and then group programs.
Okay.
So with one-on-one, first of all, I always recommend to people, don't just do one-off sessions and don't just kind of continue on with sessions without having a container this many months and this many sessions for many, many, many reasons. But since we're talking about resigns, I'll kind of put it in this perspective. When you just have a client that's ongoing forever without, this is the package and this is the amount of time, it becomes a little bit harder to, first of all, to track results and then to track new goals. So when you've just got like this ongoing forever, things can get a little loose and messy, and purpose can be lost along the way. But when you know, okay, we're going to coach for 6 months, and at the beginning of that container, you set your goals. What is it that you want to work on? What is it that you're looking at? Then when you get to the end of those 6 months, it's a beautiful opportunity to say, okay, what do we want to celebrate from those 6 months? What was learned? What worked? What didn't happen? And then take all of that and say, okay, now from this new place, what do you want to accomplish over the next 6 months? And let's see if it makes sense for me to support you with that. It's in terms of transformation and co-creating results with clients, it's a much more effective way of looking at things than just ongoing work.
I love that. But I do love that you have like a start and finish. We can look at the results, and then moving on to the next one. Now we have new goals to work on. That
Yeah,
absolutely makes sense.
new goals and new information. Like over this last 6 months, this and this and this really worked to help you achieve your goals. For the next 6 months, this was one of the gap places the last 6 months. So we're going to tweak that a little bit more. It helps in so many ways. In terms of groups, excuse me, I have people that go through my groups, like my initial Sacred Depths training, and then they continue with me for other trainings and other trainings. So you asked how that works. I have advanced trainings after that, and then clients have and students have like begged me to create continuity programs after that. But again, all with containers. Those are usually a year long, but okay, this is what we're going to accomplish this year. And then again and again.
I love that. So tell me about the 7 resistance archetypes. This is all new to me, so I want to know all the things.
Yes. Yeah. So before we even talk about the resistance archetypes, I usually find it helpful to talk about what resistance is and how it operates and functions, because it's alive for all of us, no matter how much inner work we've done. Even for myself, I teach it and I still find new places. So, in the most simplest of terms, resistance is when we have a goal that we want to achieve, and it's an aligned goal. It's one that is really right for us, and it is the right timing and all of that. But somehow we resist taking the actions to get to that goal. We can procrastinate, we can, decide like, oh, this is just so overwhelming and I just can't do it. We can find a ton of distractions. Netflix is a big, one of those things, or clean the whole house before I start this thing, all of that. So that's what happens when we're in resistance, and we can be in resistance to a business goal, to a health goal, to a relationship goal, to a hobby goal, a house goal, whatever it is. So how does resistance work? This is important before we even get to the archetypes. So almost always, the reason resistance arises is because it's a symptom of fear. So we might really, really, really want to accomplish a goal, let's say to grow our business or to show up more on social media. Even though we really, really want to accomplish that goal, we may have a fear, like a fear of visibility, or a fear of being a fraud, or a fear that others, if we show up in these ways, others are going to get angry at us, or a fear that others are going to criticize us, right? There's a lot of core fears that we can have. And the fears don't want to be looked at, because if they're looked at, then, you move on with the actions. And so something very sneaky happens. I always say, like, the core fear is kind of, I usually make a fist with my hand, like that's in the middle. And then the resistance behavior wraps itself around the fear as a distraction, right? So instead of going deeper into looking why I'm scared of being a fraud, or why I'm scared of being abandoned, or why I'm scared of visibility, we get caught up in, oh my gosh, I suck, I'm such a procrastinator, or oh my gosh, this feels so overwhelming, or oh, the coach that's helping me, they're making it too confusing for me. And the resistance distracts us from actually working with and making friends with the fear, so that we can move forward. It's very sneaky and very sophisticated. But what I have found is, if we can identify what some of our resistance archetypes are, then we, in the moment when it shows up, we can go, no, it's not actually that I'm lazy right now. This is an indicator that there's something that I'm scared of. Let me go deeper with that. So that's what the resistance archetypes are, in a way.
And I know that you say that there's 7. Is this something that you came up with, or it is?
Yeah, it is. And actually there's way more than 7.
Okay.
So I usually share 4 or 7 of the most common ones, but everybody's got their own resistance expression, we can call it. Sometimes it's a combination of the two, sometimes it's something completely different. But I like to share the ones that I have found are the most common.
And what are those?
Okay, so the first one, this is one that I know the best, is is the victim archetype. Now, it doesn't mean that you are a victim. We're talking about a behavior, not a person or an identity.
Okay.
And that's really important to understand, not just for ourselves when we go into resistance, but when we are supporting a client in resistance. Because the moment I start to see my client as a victim, then I don't see them as whole and complete anymore. Then I'm there to fix them. Then those energetics that we were talking about earlier are off. This is just a part of the client or a part of ourselves that shows up when our defenses are up, when our triggers are up. It's a way that we've adapted in order to not feel the fear. So the first one is the victim archetype. And when you go into the victim archetype, it is as if everybody and everything is against you. You are completely helpless against your circumstances. You can't get your goal done because this thing happened to you and that person did that thing to you. And you feel in those moments as if you've lost your personal power to move forward, like something is just against you. I call these resistance archetypes because it's almost as if we step into a foreign energy. We get caught in this vortex of energy that we believe when we're in the resistance. So when you're in the victim resistance archetype, even though you're normally an empowered person, in those moments, it feels like you have no personal power whatsoever to be able to move forward. So that's the victim. Another really common one is the judge. The judge's defense mechanism is to get really critical and judgmental, either of themselves or of others or of the coach. So when you're coaching, if your client steps into the judge, one way that it could look like is, you know what, coach, that's just a terrible strategy that we're working on. You're really not helping me at all. Now I always say we always want to use our listening filters because it might not be an aligned strategy for the client, right? That's always the case. But when it's not that, it's because the client is so scared to take those actions that you've been strategizing on together that they get judgmental. A really common one in the coaching industry I see is when a coach is ready to raise their rates. They get all judgy about other people's rates. Oh, she charges too much. That's, so astronomical. I would never charge that much. Oftentimes it's because there is this fear, this core fear that the judgment is then hiding around what's going to happen if I raise my rates or whatever it is.
I could totally see that coming up for coaches. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the judge. Another really common one is the procrastinator. I don't have to say too much about that one. But the procrastinator will just find anything else to do. Like it becomes so urgent to wash the dishes or to clean out the email inbox when really there's a big write the newsletter instead or whatever it is. So that's the procrastinator. Similar to the procrastinator, but a little different is the flake. So the flake, when we see the flake in a client, it's a client who's normally very responsible, but they all of a sudden show up late for a session, or they forget that there is a session, or they forget that there was homework that they said they were going to do since the last session. It's like when they are confronted with their fear, they just go into this like strange flakiness that is not who they are, but it helps them not take those steps.
I can kind of see that one too. I feel like all of these could we step into all these archetypes at different points?
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
we usually have our most preferred archetype, but I certainly have, some of the victim and some of the judge and some of the others. So we can definitely step into more than one.
Tell me about the needy one.
Yeah. So the needy one, this will show up in a client who is normally very self-sufficient. It's not that they don't need any support. Obviously, all human beings need support. That's why they've hired us. But it's a person who is normally self-sufficient, but when they go into fear around taking actions, they all of a sudden, maybe they start sending us 10 emails in a row or very, very lengthy emails. They need us to hold their hand in ways that don't make sense for who they are. They feel like they need a crutch, like they just can't do it on their own. They get very needy.
Yeah. And the jokester, I'm just going to take a stab and assume that that's just somebody who likes to make a joke out of the situation to kind of deflect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So exactly, it's like they start to, make things funny, they make jokes instead of being with the fear that comes up in that moment, or the shadow that comes up in that moment, or the confronting thing in that moment. You'll see the jokester in one-on-one, and then a lot of times in groups, the jokester will kind of like make a joke right in a very serious moment, in a group where something big has just come up.
Yeah, I can see that. Tell me about the spiritual one.
The spiritual one is one of the sneakiest, because for those of us that are spiritual, and I am there, and all these archetypes have their highest expression, right, and then their kind of not so helpful lower expression. So the spiritual one is sneaky because for those of us that are spiritual, there's so much beauty in it. But it's when someone inadvertently is using their spirituality or spiritual concepts to avoid the fear. So as an example, let's say a deep shadow comes up. So let's say a feeling of jealousy comes up. That's important that we want to work on with our client because that jealousy is standing in their way. The spiritual one might say, you know what, I'm all love and light. I don't like to look at things like jealousy. That's not really part of my existence. So I'm not going to look at that.
Would that
It's
be spiritual bypassing?
exactly spiritual
Okay.
bypassing.
Yeah. Huh. And then you have the teacher.
Yeah. So the teacher usually comes up in groups. The teacher is the one where, you're leading a group. And now whenever I lead groups, I love like everybody shares wisdom. That's an essential part of, I think, group facilitation. I'm not the one on the pedestal as the leader or the teacher. Everybody contributes. But what I'm talking about with the teacher is the one in the group who always tries to give others advice or one up the leader, show how smart they are, or really tell others what in the group, what they think they should do or what they think is going on with them. It is a way, again, of deflecting fear, either because a discomfort is coming up for them around looking at themselves and what advice do they want to give themselves or what do they want to see inside of themselves, or it deflects this fear of I don't feel smart enough in this group and I need to prove myself in some way.
That is very interesting. And as you went through each one, I'm able to identify at different points, like every single one. I will say my go-to is the judge, and it's usually of myself, not of others. I can have so much grace and compassion and empathy for others. And somehow it's more work and challenging to give that to myself. I'm a astrologer, and I say that's the Virgo in me, where it's like the critical voice just living inside my head.
You're talking to a fellow Virgo, so I know
Oh,
nothing
are
about
you
what you're
serious?
talking about. I'm kidding. I know it exactly. It's so easy to give to others what we can't give to ourselves.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I just recently read a book called How to Talk to Yourself Like a Buddhist by
Mm,
Cynthia Kane,
mm,
and it's been phenomenal,
mm.
I will say. So you say that you can harvest the gold in each archetype. I want to harvest the gold.
Yeah,
How do we
yeah,
do that?
yeah. Such a great question. So, um, here's the thing is that there's nothing, whenever we step into a part of ourselves or an energy, there's nothing inherently bad about that part or that energy. It's just about how we use it. And there's a lot of talk in the transformational industry about, um, getting rid of fears or getting rid of these, unsavory parts of ourselves, etc. And actually, what I always propose is the opposite of that, is we don't want to get rid of any of these parts of ourselves. Then they just go into shadow where they fester. Every part of ourselves is an essential part of who we are. It's just that when we're not friends with them in aligned ways, they command us, those parts command us in not so great ways versus us commanding them. So the more that we can actually honor and love and respect all of the parts of ourselves, including our resistance archetypes, the more that we can approach them with compassion, with curiosity, with trying to understand why they're there, how they're trying to serve us, what they're trying to do for us, what they need from us, then we get to pull that, like I said, like the gold out of them, right? So maybe, for example, it's different for everybody, but maybe, for example, inside of the procrastinator is one who knows how to be spacious, one who knows how to take space for oneself instead of constantly overworking, right? If we can harness that part of the procrastinator, so much is possible. Maybe for some people, and I know this is true for me, the gold inside of my particular victim is the gift of drama. And that's why I'm able to evoke drama in my groups and, kind of like have fun in certain moments, like create drama for good, right? But when I'm not harnessing it, the victim is harnessing me with drama that is not very helpful. Maybe inside of the judge archetype, and this is true, I think, for a lot of people that I've worked with, the gold is the skill of discernment, right? To actually know this is a good decision, that's not a good decision. This is someone I want to hang out with, that's actually not someone I want to hang out with. There is so much gold. And we know that we've hit on the gold versus the resistance archetype when it doesn't feel like a triggering energy, like when we make that discerning decision where it's like more of a wisdom and a matter of fact versus we're being pulled into that vortex of energy, of judgment.
I love that. There's so many things that you said. I love that you said coming from a place of curiosity. Oftentimes we come from a place of judgment instead of, just being curious, observing, asking questions, really stepping into self-coaching, really.
Yes.
Isn't it what it is at the end of the day? We're just coaching ourselves.
So
Yeah.
true.
So tell me about the 6-step somatic process to navigate resistance.
Yeah. So I'll share it quickly. There is obviously a lot to each step. But so the first step always goes back to those energetics that I was talking about. Like, you cannot do anything, you cannot help your clients with this if, as a practitioner, you are feeling, again, like you're not good enough, like they're not good enough. Also, if you are scared or worried about your client's resistance archetype, if you feel as the practitioner that something has gone wrong, that it's because you're a bad coach or practitioner that this resistance has come up, if you don't know that it is just a normal, natural byproduct of fear, then the energetics are going to be off. So that's step one, is really align the energetics, come from a place of love and compassion and honoring and curiosity for yourself, for your client.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just everything flows from there. The next step is creating awareness. So you want to have skills, and I teach my students for each of the archetypes, there's a little bit of a different way that you want to create awareness for that archetype. And you want to be skilled at it, because or else the archetype will go, the client will go into shame, right? So you don't want to just create, for example, awareness on the victim archetype by saying, like, I think you're acting like a victim right now, right, to your client. That's not a good way to support a client to be aware that something is happening for them. You want to be able to use the right reflections, the right words, or ask the right questions so that a client is able to receive the awareness that they're actually not in their highest self, they're not in their full power, but they're kind of in a defense mechanism. So you want to create awareness. That's step 2. As you create the awareness, you also want to normalize. Normalizing in all of coaching, but particularly when you're working with resistance, is vital. So normalizing, what it essentially means is letting your client know that there's nothing wrong about them or about the process, or this doesn't mean they don't have the ability to create what they want. There's just not, it is normal to go into resistance. I heard recently Brene Brown say that the opposite of shaming is normalizing. And I just love that. It's so important. Normalizing also, sometimes means letting your client know that happens to you too. But whatever it is. So we want to normalize. From there, and we're using our coaching skills along the way, seeing what's resonating, all of those pieces. But from there, once we've normalized, then a client, the way I like to describe it is, once we create awareness and normalize, we're already starting to poke holes into the resistance archetype. It can start to soften a little bit. It doesn't have to defend the fear so much, because it's being seen, it's being named, it's being loved. It doesn't have to so strongly do the job that it's been doing. So from there, you have some choices, but usually the next step is to cognitively first support your client to see where else does this resistance archetype show up for them, and how has it impacted them, and what has the history of this pattern been. Creating awareness on that history, on that pattern, on where it comes from, maybe who modeled it for them, where they learned it. It provides so much valuable information that allows, even if you were to end the process right there and not do the last 2 steps, just with that information alone, a client could go back into their lives and start to notice when they step into the resistance archetype and start to call themselves out because of it, because they've got all of this beautiful awareness now. Step 5 is the actual somatic process, which, it takes me a while to train practitioners. I won't go into all of the pieces, but what I'll say is, we don't only want to work cognitively with resistances or fears or shadows. Yes, so much happens in the mind, but we feel our fears in our body. They're connected to our nervous systems. We hold different resistances and fears and shadows in our bodies. So we want to work not just cognitively, but also somatically for a client to, what I always like to say is, what a big piece of what the technique is about is to get regulated with fears that have previously caused dysregulation, to get regulated in our bodies with fears that generally trigger us, put us into fight or flight, fawn or freeze, etc. So we're supporting a client to connect with the resistance and connect with the fear in ways where they can really not get rid of the fear or the resistance, but hold it alongside with their grounded selves and bodies. And then the last step after all that work is to strategize. Okay, what do you want to do next? What's a different action you want to take? How do you want to move forward?
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. Kate and myself both practice EFT. as well. So I 100% know that we hold our emotions in our bodies, and it's just as equally important as working with the mind to let go and release and transmute that. So thank you for that. That is amazing. Um, is there something that I didn't ask that you would want our listeners to know?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered so much. I mean, I think the one thing is I know for a lot of practitioners, it can sometimes feel scary to go to these places and address these things with clients. It's so much easier to just be like, oh, they're just in judgment or they're, whatever the archetype is, and to kind of just bypass it or, just kind of try to push them into action. And I just want to, yeah, I think just the piece that I want to say is whenever we bypass the resistance archetypes or just try to push the client into action, or decide, oh, this client isn't coachable. That's another thing that can happen. Oh, this client just isn't coachable, that's never going to lead to what we want and what we want for our clients and what they want for themselves. It'll just lead to client frustration or to us losing clients or to us not feeling good about the work we're doing. So be willing to do the courageous work of supporting clients with their resistance archetypes.
Yeah, it seems like it's also a lot of internal work.
It is. It
Yes.
is.
This has been amazing. I've learned so much. So I'm excited for our listeners as they go through all this as well. We have come to the lightning round. So this is the part of the interview where I'm just going to quickly ask you some questions, and whatever comes up, that is the correct answer. So the
Sounds good.
first thing is, what's your favorite way to make time for self-care while running your own business?
I love that question. I am a big journaler and I do ritual. So I've got like my little altar set in the side of my bedroom, and I make time to do all the work we're talking about today, do my journaling, pull my cards, do my rituals. That's what kind of keeps me in check and makes me feel spacious.
I love that. I do that as well. Love that. What is one tool or strategy that you use to help with time management?
Blueprinting. I call it blueprinting. So the beginning of every month, and I do paper and pen. I don't do it on the computer. I write my big goals for the month, and then after that, I write out all of the action steps I need to take to achieve those goals. This is my Virgo. And then I write the date. I look at my calendar for the month and I write what date am I going to take each of those action steps. And that way, every week, I know exactly my action steps for the week. Every morning when I wake up, I don't have to be overwhelmed or how am I going to get things done? I know what the actions are for the day, and I just work the blueprint throughout the
I
month.
love that. I think this is, I mean, we do something similar, but I think I've never heard it referred to as blueprint before. What's the most powerful business, mindset, or entrepreneurial book that you've ever read? This is the one that you reference over and over again, and it's made the biggest difference in your life.
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. Pressure in the moment. I may have to skip it because my perimenopausal brain is not going to be able to answer that.
Sure, sure. Well, I know just from the interview that you're a Brene Brown fan.
That's true. That's
We are as
true.
well. The team
Yeah.
is as well. So let's talk about mindset. What's your favorite quote or mantra or affirmation when things get tough and you feel like giving up?
Mm. I mean, I go back to I know I didn't make this quote up, but I've been using it for years. I really go back to the energy follows energy. It's true not just with clients, but with myself. So when I'm stuck or in resistance, I ask myself, what's the energy that I want to be showing up with right now? Because I know that's going to lead my actions.
I love that. I think I'm going to borrow that from you. And then finally, you're in the Success with Soul podcast. So, what does success with soul mean to you?
I love that. To me, it's not about achieving the biggest goals or creating empires if that's not what's aligned for me, but it's about achieving the goals that feel right for me in any given moment that help me feel like I am not only on purpose and making impact, but also giving myself the time and the space to enjoy all of it.
I love that. And finally, where can our audience connect with you and find you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me. I am on Instagram, though not a lot, but at Joanna Lindenbaum, and on Facebook. And my website is applieddepthinstitute.com.
Great. It has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I personally have learned so much and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. I've loved this conversation.
Have a great day, Joanna.
You too.